Hi everyone! For my final project, I will be creating a podcast discussing copyright and fair use and all that it entails. I will discuss the basics of each concept, how they affect educators, how they are helpful to creative authors, among many other topics. Here's a little preview. According to Hobbes, copyright is the owner's legal right to reproduce, display, transmit, or modify work they have created. Copyright law protects the interests of the individual creators, the publishers or distributors of creative works, and the users or consumers of these works. Supreme Court Justice Louis Brandeis explained, "The general rule of law is that the noblest of human productions, knowledge, truths ascertained, conceptions, and ideas, become, after voluntary communication to others, free as the ear to common use." Carrie Russell explains that authors and inventors benefit from copyright is a side effect of encouraging the dissemination of knowledge and not a direct intent of copyright. According to the Constitution, copyright's purpose is to promote the spread of innovation and knowledge. According to Peter Jazzy, fair use gives people a right to use copyrighted material when the cost to the copyright holder is less than the social benefit of the use of the copyrighted work. To determine if fair use applies, an individual must evaluate the context and situation surrounding the use of a copyrighted work. Typically, there are four things that the court will look at in a fair use case. Is the work transformative? What is the nature of the work being copied? How much of the work is being used? And does it affect the market for the original work? These four factors must be considered in relation to one another, not separately, and they are not the only elements that should be considered in a fair use case. According to Hobbes, fair use is the safety valve that prevents copyright law from being a form of private censorship. YouTube has a copyright takedown process to protect the creators of original works. If someone's original work is uploaded by someone else without permission, the creator of the work can send YouTube a copyright infringement notice and the content will then be taken down. Hobbes found three definite trends in speaking with educators about their understanding of copyright and fair use law. Number one, she found, see no evil. Teachers believe the sky's the limit, but fear learning more about copyright. Two, close the door. Students and teachers are discouraged from sharing their creative work with the public. And three, hyper-comply. Some teachers adhere themselves and their students to limits on the use of copyrighted materials that are far more restrictive than the law mandates. According to Hobbes, courts realize that educators and students need to use copyrighted materials freely for scholarship, teaching, and learning. But unfortunately, many educators are fearful of learning more about copyright and fair use law in their classrooms. Since many educators are reluctant to learn about the law surrounding copyright and fair use, the production of quality materials used in the classroom may be severely hindered. Some may even stifle their students' creativity because of this misinformation and fear. In 2010, Viacom, the creator of South Park, was sued after they parodied a popular viral video. It was eventually ruled fair use as it was a parody commenting on the trend of viral videos. This fair use case is extremely important to the creative class because it shows that fair use lawsuits can be stopped before going to trial. In order to determine if something is fair use, creative authors must ask themselves, 1. Did my use of the work repurpose or transform the copyrighted material? 2. Did I merely retransmit the original work? And 3, did I use just the amount I needed in order to accomplish my purpose? A few pieces of legislation relating to copyright and fair use to mention are the Copyright Act of 1909, which allowed for original work to be copyrighted for 28 years after production, and the Copyright Act of 1976, which is still a basis for copyright law today. Copyright and fair use is vitally important to the creative media producers as well as the creative media consumers. Copyright gives creative media producers control of their work and it allows media consumers to use creative works legally. It can also both save money and make money for creators and consumers. According to Purdue University Copyright Office, copyright infringement is the act of violating any of a copyright owner's exclusive rights granted by the Federal Copyright Act. There are three elements that must be in place in order for the infringement to occur. These three elements are, number 1, the copyright holder must have a valid copyright. Number 2, the person who is allegedly infringing must have access to the copyrighted work. And 3, the duplication of the copyrighted work must be outside the exceptions. Copyright law in the United States can be traced back to 1787 during the ratification process of the Constitution. The first federal copyright law was ratified in May 1790 by Congress. The Copyright Act of 1790 was passed to encourage learning through the sharing of maps, charts, and books. I hope you enjoyed this brief look into copyright and fair use law. Stay tuned for my podcast where I will further explore these concepts, discuss copyright and fair use with a variety of individuals, and share my own opinions on the subject.